Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God, back with you with the next video in my Line of God's Daily Dare series. As usual, before I discuss what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Dare video, I want to go ahead and read you a chapter from the Bible. Today I will be continuing with Genesis chapter 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler, the king of Egypt, and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And the Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers, and against the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. The captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. And they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning, and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And the chief butler told his dream to Joseph, and said to him, In my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it was budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And Joseph said unto him, This is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head, and restore thee into thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, after the former manner when thou wast his butler. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and shew kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. And in the uppermost basket there was of all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. And Joseph answered and said, This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again, and he gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I don't want to offer analysis about the chief baker and the chief butler and their relationship with Pharaoh, etc. What the verse that stands out to me here at the end of Genesis 40 is, yet, the very last verse, Genesis 40:23. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forget him. This is one of the things I think is very powerful about the men in the Bible, is them doing what's right, and then the people of the world not respecting or regarding their sacrifice as much as it should be, but the good men of the Bible still do what their duty is. Probably the most example of it that I think is Lord Jesus himself. When Jesus, he does all the healing, right? He does all the stuff, but at the end of the day, those people forgot him. There's a verse in there that the multitude ultimately forgot what Jesus did for them, and they didn't remember it. And the thing is, that's why you give credit to those men who did those things, because they did it not expecting celebrations and festivities, but They did it because they loved and wanted to serve God. So for that reason, I give Joseph credit because he did this. And he says to the man, he says, "But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and shew kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house." So Jacob asks the baker, the butler, not the baker. The baker gets hanged. He asks the butler, and says, "Please, when you go there to Pharaoh, now that you have this dream, tell Pharaoh that it was that Joseph who helped him, and so that Pharaoh gives Joseph a chance." But what does it say at the end? It says, "But the chief yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forget." But but that's part of the story of the Bible, is people doing what's right, and it's not being respected. It's not being acknowledged with the level of respect that it should. So I give those men credit because they are the ones who do those good things and make those sacrifices. And if it's not respected, there's no choice but to keep going and continue on and push through. So that's it. So with that, I'll go ahead now and transition over to what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Dive video. Since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I worked my software engineering job, I worked at my core, and I trained Jiu-Jitsu. With no further achievements since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I'll go ahead and talk about how I've been doing. In the last time I talked about how I've been doing, I talked about how I was grateful that Jiu-Jitsu has become a habit in my life. And I talk about this from this perspective. My job as the Spirit now, there are, of course, duties like that the Spirit has that are written in the Bible. I'm not going to talk about them at this time. Rather, the idea is I want to talk about the goals that I have for Naren. And so it took me a while to realize, because I was versing myself in the scriptures, exactly what Naren would be. At first I was thinking, is Naren something separate from Christianity? And I didn't mean that in a negative way. I meant it in the sense that I still adhere to the teachings of the New Testament. It's that, what does Jesus say? He says, anyone who adds on to this book, plagues will come upon him, etc. He says this in Revelation. The idea is that Jesus' words in the New Testament are the key to eternal life. And I say as much in the very first chapter of my gospel. Naren exists as it is a Christian denomination, in a sense. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. Of course, it's a denomination of one, so it's not really worth making a hoopla over. It's the idea that, what do I envision for Naren? I envision this idea that I want to sacrifice and set a path for my people. When you look at the Spirit in the Old Testament, there are many, many passages where the Spirit comes upon people and they go on to do things. For example, coming upon Bezaleel the son of Uri the son of Hur, and they go on to build. Coming upon Gideon the son of Joash, and he blows his trumpet when the Amalekites and Midianites pitch camp in the valley of Jezreel. Coming across Jesus in his baptism, when Jesus goes on to begin his ministry. What the specifics of what the Spirit does, I don't know. I've talked about this before. I would rather receive less credit now, and whatever the truth is in the future, that way I didn't overstate anything. Because I'm not really interested in thinking about that for two reasons. One, because what's ultimately that for what I just said, who would rather not be you say less and then it was more. And then also the ink is dry on those pages. There's no point thinking about the legacy that's already done. God is a God of the living. So, keep going in the present. Anyhow, continuing on. The idea being that what I do today, if I ask my children to do something, they will look at me and say, what have you done? So the idea from this is this. A very, very common example is a parent who smokes cigarettes tells their child not to smoke cigarettes. But the child then says, you smoke cigarettes, so they'll smoke cigarettes. Right? That's it. So what do I do with my life? I serve God perfectly. I read my Bible. I work as a software engineer, saving and investing diligently to provide a life for my family. And I lift weights and train jiu-jitsu to practice the idea of self-defense. Am I a police officer, a soldier? Am I a serviceman? No. So I can't tell my kids that in this time I served. So I figured the next best thing to do is show them that, look, the reason I do martial arts is to build this physical discipline. Is it the same as a man, for example, who goes outside patrolling the streets all day and then trains martial arts? Oh, God, no. I'm not even suggesting that. I'm saying this little I could do because why did I pursue engineering? Because it paid me the most money, and that I had to eat and provide a life for myself and my family. So I'm grateful that God helped me to get employment in life as an engineer. And then tell them, why did I do engineering? Because it made me the most money that I could do. I God knows when I was 18 years old. When I was 18 years old, I was 125 pounds. To put that in context, if I step on the scale now, I'm like 215. I've listed 227 on my workout videos. It's because I was a little bit heavier. I've been losing fat with the jiu-jitsu. And yeah, so either way, the reason I wrote 227 also is because God in a dream showed me that I weighed 227 at this time. So that's the truth. So that's why I can say that honestly. So that's why I wrote 227. And I've also lost some fat with jiu-jitsu. But the point being that 100 pounds of muscle, I wasn't made that way when I was younger. And even now, there are plenty of NFL people who are like 300, 400 pounds, right? Yeah. And the idea is like, so it's like that was never going to be my path when I was 18 years old. So it was going to be on me to be able to find a career for myself mentally. So that's why I want to tell my kids that there's nothing wrong with being a teacher, an accountant, a lawyer, a businessman. Those are things you should think. Those are things that are awesome. You don't have to think about necessarily being a UFC fighter or something very prestigious like that. So those are and of course serving God perfectly is number one. So those are the things that I by doing those habits now, I want my children to say, what did Dad do with his days every day? Because they will judge me. They will judge me and say, what did he do with every day? And if I serve God perfectly, say work as an engineer and lift and train martial arts, for me, that's enough of a path that they should say, these are the things that he valued with his time, and that they should value something similar. So that's where I'll go ahead and end the Bible video there for today. I want to go ahead and say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.